On that somewhat heavy note, deep breath, right? Couple of logistical concerns going forward. First of all, we announced this morning that there will be a recording of this event available. That recording will not go out by DVD. In an effort to be sustainable, use fewer plastics, and reduce our mailing costs, we're going to push that out by way of YouTube. So look for an announcement by way of your registration email that we will use to push out a YouTube link to you that will have everything that happened on this stage today. Likewise, League of Women Voters will also send you a survey about the efficacy of today's sessions and how much you learned, what you would have liked to see differently, just to help us shape the dialogue going into the future. So look for those two logistical concerns going forward. It is now my pleasure to introduce Wayne Gilchrist, who's our keynote endnote speaker for the day. I first saw Mr. Gilchrist speak in this very auditorium 12 years ago. When he was the congressional representative for this district. And I was given to a little bit of hope on the occasion because here was a policymaker who knew the numbers, the facts, the figures, and the graphs for climate change. Here was a policymaker who had his thumb on the pulse of the larger system. And I was thrilled to be living in a district represented by somebody who had taken the time to learn the science. After his service in the Congress ended, he is now the director of the Sassafras River Environmental Center, which is an effort that he shares with the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy. He is an outspoken advocate for education and for the environment here on the Eastern Shore. Without further ado, Mr. Gilchrist, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Greg. One positive thing about not being in Congress anymore is you don't have to wear any ties. And I am trying to compete. There is one person on the shore I'm competing with rather aggressively. That's Tom Horton, because Tom doesn't wear any ties. So now I can show up at events if Tom's not here and I don't have a tie on. But I want to thank the League of Women Voters, Chesapeake College, and all of the speakers here this morning and this afternoon to spread this kind of information to all of you. It is invaluable. NYTSE had a statement, of course, some years ago, that I've always liked. And I think it can be attributed to what your role is and what your future is in trying to spread the word to keep people about sea level rise and climate change. And he said, man is half plant and half ghost. How do you command a plant and measure a ghost? So we ask you to go out to your counties and begin your role as a responsible adult to teach the policymakers, your neighbors, your grandchildren, about the future of the Eastern Shore. It is a very, very difficult task with all the other demands that are on people. A very difficult task. My son, when he was 16, 1991, we were sitting in the living room together, and some event just happened somewhere that he was a little bit upset about. And he says, you know, the world seems to me to be like two men in the cab of a tractor-trailer truck driving 80 miles an hour down a lone, dark country road. And it's raining hard. And 1 mile ahead, the bridge is out, and there's a 1,000-foot drop into a deep chasm. And not only are they not paying attention, they're arguing. Now, this was his view of the world. And he needed someone, something, over a fairly lengthy period of time to give him some explanation for what he saw as life on planet Earth. He needed consistent dialogue, information, conversation to help him change his pattern of thought so that he would be more optimistic. And what that conversation needed to include over a fairly long period of time, actually a lifetime, what that conversation needed to include was information, good knowledge, and inspiration. Norman Cousins, the editor of the Saturday Review, had a quote that I've always liked. And this is a paraphrase to that quote. If we spend more time on our fears, it's to the expense of our dreams. He had another quote, knowledge is the solvent for danger. So as Joel and we continue to talk. He spent 8 years in the Antarctic, 3 years in Afghanistan. Now he's in South Korea. He's sort of in a small group of people that can pick their place around the planet where they want to go. But his conversations now, besides still talking about Star Trek, because he's a Trekkie, and if I send him a quote, any quote from any obscure Star Trek episode, he'll email me back the quote before and the quote after. I don't know how he does it. But thought is the basic ingredient to learning. And changing the pattern of thought and the pattern of thinking and the pattern of viewing the world takes consistent dedication and knowledge and information and not giving up. Now, if the quote is correct that man is half plant and half ghost, how do you command that? How do you communicate with that? And I have somewhat of a vague, ambiguous potential answer to that question for you. The question to proceed, to begin to spread information in a positive way. So the people in Crisfield, my wife is from Crisfield, so I know all about Crisfield. I went to college with some of the people from Crisfield some years ago. To change the mind of people that don't want to change their mind takes kindness, takes compassion, takes consistency, and on your own part, takes resilience from being rebuffed time and time again. So how do you do that? Well, I'm going to ask you a question. How do you mentor the morning? You know what I mean when I say mentor? You usually think, how do you mentor a child? How do you mentor someone with a disability? How do you mentor a friend to raise their spirits, to raise their potential, to guide them through difficulties? How do you mentor the morning? Ask yourself that question when you want to proceed to give information, to change the world, to bring a better understanding of the depth that global warming and climate change will have, not for the people in this room, not for us, but for future generations. How do you mentor the morning? You do it every morning. You wake up. And you might not feel that good. You might be tired. You might be a little under the weather. But think like a poet who is in a dusty, small, cold, lonely apartment. And when they sit down to begin to write their poem, they are actually, literally, in a forest listening to the songbirds. Or if you're a poet and you're sitting in a vacant lot and you begin to daydream about the eagles soaring on top of a mountain or over a pristine marsh looking for a fish. That's how you mentor the morning. That's how you mentor children. That's how you mentor the world. You do it every single day, and you spend more time on what's possible, more time on your dreams than you do on your fears. than you do about people that you dislike, or if you're listening to politics and somebody in the Republican Party, of which I am still a member, says something that's incredible, like the president doesn't love America. Don't let that get you down. Let that inspire you to be more inventive, more ingenious, more imaginative. We have a serious problem. This tiny little blue and white speck in the midst of an infinite hostile environment is all we have. And we are all in this together. We're not Americans, and we're not Russians, and we're not Libyans, and we're not Liberians. We're just human beings on this planet. And it is possible for us to get together, to begin that network, to teach a 10-year-old, because as all of us know in this room, we're not 10 years old for very long. We're not 16 years old for very long. We're not 20 for very long. We're not 40 for very long. We're not 50 for very long. Time goes by, so it's really important for us to spend more time on our dreams and share those dreams with other people, especially children. And when you share this with children that are fidgety, or a little bit bored, or want to go out, or make a phone call, or text somebody, if you spend time with them, they'll absorb that information, so that when they become adults tomorrow, they'll be more responsible, more knowledgeable, more aware, more ready and prepared to meet the future. How do you mentor the morning? It's an interesting question. You do it every day with resilience, persistence, an open mind, with kindness, and it'll work. It'll work. That's the only chance we have. So this is an extraordinary opportunity, and Greg, I would just love to see this auditorium filled on a pretty regular basis with all kinds of people. And this was a great program. And I keep thinking about Winston Churchill, his address to Cambridge University during World War II, where he stood at the podium and he said, "Never give up, never give up, never give up." That was the entire speech, and he sat down. What I was going to do was come out here and say, "Thanks for coming, you did a great job, get home before the snow comes." But I want to thank all of you for coming out on a day like this to a wonderful event, and travel safely. Thank you.